Once you fall asleep, you will be infected by a mysterious virus, and then die in a nightmare. But can a person really stay awake forever? Welcome to the mind-bending mystery series, The Edge of Sleep. The main character Dave nods off during his night shift at DAC Labs. He topples right out of his chair. His colleague Matt pulls up the surveillance footage and laughs at Dave's earlier behavior, but that action saved his life. Matt saw that Dave's life is boring all day long, and decided to drag Dave to a party nearby. Dave has serious sleep issues. He hasn't slept for 36 hours. Since childhood, he would have nightmares as soon as he fell asleep, dreaming of his mother pulling out his hair and turning into a monster with an elephant's face, dreaming of a group of black-robed people surrounding him reciting mantras. Now Dave really wants to refuse Matt. He cherishes his rare desire to sleep, but he can't withstand Matt's persuasion. Plus, Dave heard that his ex-girlfriend Katie would be there. He feels a bit excited to see her. However, when the two arrive at the party has ended. There are only a few people left inside, including Dave's high school classmate who excitedly shares Dave's embarrassing moments during his episodes.
Pissed his pants, woke up screaming and started bashing his head on the floor, bro.
Matt heard the guy mocking Dave, and immediately came over to stop him. In their scuffle, they knocked over a person sleeping on the sofa. Only then did they realize that the person wasn't breathing. Dave quickly started administering first aid. He told Matt to call for an ambulance, but the phone indicated that the line was busy. Dave ran upstairs to seek help from the homeowner. Unexpectedly, they also died leaning on the bed. Dave's first thought was a gas leak, so he decided to move the people out first. As for the high school classmate who was joking around, he had already slipped away amid the chaos. A few minutes later, Dave and Matt arrived at the hospital. With 3 people on board, they found an ambulance parked at the entrance, with its back doors wide open. A sense of foreboding washed over them. The two hurried into the hospital shouting for help. Inside, they saw several corpses. Matt called out to the nurse in front, saying, "We have 3 dead people in our car." The nurse confirmed, and decided to contact the police first, to handle the situation when they arrived. Because there had been a sudden surge of death cases last night, the hospital was severely understaffed, and there was no one to come and remove the bodies. Dave and Matt had to wait in the lobby for the hospital to officially open. The two noticed a father and daughter sitting across from them. The daughter was tenderly advising her father to take a nap. On the other side, the on-duty doctor was also preparing to go home. He couldn't reach any of his colleagues or anyone from the board. Even the CDC and FBI were unreachable. The doctor just wanted to confirm that his family was safe. Nurse Linda pleaded with her colleague Ab to stay. After all, only the two of them were left in the entire hospital. Ab had been busy since yesterday morning, and he insisted on getting some sleep first. At this moment, the hospital's TV was looping advertisements.
It's modafinilist. Stay awake, stay alert, stay alive. Stimulating the central nervous system to generate brain.
Dave snapped back to reality from the advertisement. He noticed that the old man from earlier was frothing at the mouth. Dave got up to alert the girl next to him, but she collapsed to the side and died immediately. When Linda learned about the situation, she hurried upstairs to find him. He was also lying on the sofa, dead. The 3 realized that the problem was beyond their imagination. After a breakdown, Linda gradually regained her composure. She asked Matt to borrow his car to head to the police station. Hearing this, Dave decided to join her. The 3 drove towards the city center. They didn't see a single person along the way. After Linda got out of the car, she looked at the deserted street. A terrifying thought crossed her mind. Could it be that the entire town had fallen? Linda took out her gun and fired a shot. If there were any survivors, they would surely come. But after waiting for a long time, no one appeared. Dave didn't give up. He checked all the houses on the street. Without exception, the homeowners were all dead in their beds. That is to say, this disease that causes sudden death is triggered by sleep.
So what, we're just supposed to stay awake forever?
Going to the police station is useless now, Linda suggested, calling those who might still be awake, to warn them not to sleep. But after dialing several numbers, no one answered. Matt suggested going to a nearby radio station to broadcast the news about the sleep-related deaths. The 3 were just about to get in the car and leave, when the car wouldn't start at a critical moment. Matt took off his shirt to repair it. In the meantime, Dave kept trying to call Katie. Fortunately, his efforts were not in vain. Katie indeed hadn't slept last night, but before Dave could explain the sleep-death situation, Katie hung up the phone. After all, their breakup had been quite unpleasant. It would take at least 20 minutes for Matt to fix the car. Dave didn't dare to waste time. He hurried off to find Katie. To stay alert and avoid drowsiness, Linda initiated a conversation with Matt. From their dialogue, it was clear that both Matt and Dave were veterans, and they were also former Air Force, so Matt was quite familiar with machinery. He soon fixed the car. The two drove to the nearby radio station. Inside, all the staff were dead. At this moment, Katie was about to take a nap. Dave rushed to the door and shouted. Since no one responded, he kicked the door open. There was no one in the bedroom. Just as Dave was getting anxious, he got hit with a blow. Katie stood behind him, holding a weapon. The ex-boyfriend kicking the door and breaking in can indeed make people scared. Dave explained the situation about the sleep deaths, but Katie thought he was talking nonsense. She even took out her phone to call the police. Surely, no one would answer. Dave ran into the hallway, shouting that there was a fire. Not a single neighbor came out to check. Just as he finished speaking, the radio station played Linda's voice. She urged the survivors not to sleep, and to stay awake. If they could hear the broadcast, please go to St. Mira Hospital. Upon hearing the broadcast, Katie began to believe Dave, but the problem was that a few minutes ago, she had just taken sleeping pills to help her sleep. Dave immediately helped Katie induce vomiting. She successfully expelled 2 sleeping pills. Soon after, Linda and Matt arrived at the apartment to meet up. The 4 gathered to discuss their next steps. Staying awake for too long will definitely have adverse effects. Dave, who suffers from long-term insomnia, has a lot of experience with this. If an ordinary person stays awake for 48 hours, the body will begin to collapse, with symptoms of mental illness such as illusions, auditory hallucinations, anxiety, and depression. By 72 hours, the situation will continue to worsen. They had already been awake for 43 hours. If they didn't quickly find the cause of the disease, no one would last much longer. The 3 returned to the hospital to wait for other survivors. Suddenly, a faint cry for help came from the ward. Katie opened the door to take a look. A lady named Ruth was lying on the bed. The 2 of them met at a drug rehabilitation center before. Linda explained that the old lady had cancer and needed painkillers to sleep due to her pain. Linda had forgotten to bring her medication because she was too busy, but this ended up saving the old lady's life. To avoid upsetting the elderly woman, they concealed what was happening outside. Linda pulled out the drug Modafinil from the advertisement. Then she distributed it to everyone. Matt had heard of this stimulant. Some pilots take it before missions to stay awake for several days. Modafinil takes about 15 minutes to take effect. So far, no survivors had come after hearing the broadcast. Linda didn't want to just sit and wait to die. She decided to dissect a few bodies to see if she could find the cause of the disease. After changing their clothes, they gathered at the morgue. Dave and Matt were responsible for filming and recording. Linda chose a 37-year-old male corpse. He had been hospitalized due to a broken rib, but he died in his sleep at 4 in the morning. Linda held the scalpel and cut open the deceased's scalp. She felt that his muscles were still very warm inside. Logically speaking, he should have been cold after being dead for so long. She switched to a bone saw to open the skull. A wisp of white smoke emerged from inside. There was also an inverted triangle symbol on the deceased's brain. Dave had seen this symbol in his dreams before, when he was having his episodes in self-harming. He had also carved an inverted triangle onto his body. Years ago, to treat Dave's illness, his mother sought help from the sleep doctor Lewis. He developed a sophisticated sleep chamber that could access the temporal lobe of the subject's brains. This helped technicians monitor and influence dreams. Dave couldn't help but recall many old memories. The others were too preoccupied to notice his abnormal behavior. They continued discussing the origins of the symbol. Although Linda was just a nurse, she actually held a PhD in neuroscience before coming to the hospital. She worked at a large pharmaceutical company. While at that company, the higher-ups secured dozens of government collaboration projects. They researched pathogens and neurotoxins, including substances that could kill during sleep. Linda attempted to expose the illegal experiments of the pharmaceutical company, but was framed by their lawyers and lost her license. That's why Linda ended up working as a nurse in the hospital. Could this bizarre large-scale death disaster be related to the pharmaceutical company's research? Linda was very confused. She had no thoughts about the virus. Meanwhile, Dave concealed his experience with the symbol. He desperately tried to recall the information from his dreams. Various blurry images flashed in his mind. Katie could tell that Dave was troubled. She hoped Dave would talk to her. Finally, Dave let down his guard and told Katie about his strange childhood illness. The sleep doctor had encouraged Dave to confront the fears in his dreams. So, Dave gathered the courage to push open the door in his dream and confronted the black-robed man, asking what it wanted, but the figure vanished without a trace. Not far away, there was a sleep chamber. He approached to observe it closely. Dave discovered a figure with an elephant head lying inside. Dave was almost trapped by the nightmare. The sleep doctor rushed over to wake him up, but was stabbed in the neck by the mentally unstable Dave. In the following years, he gradually improved. That's when he met Katie, and fell in love with her. However, a few months ago, Dave's nightmares became more frequent, with signs of a relapse. He didn't dare to be honest with Katie, which led to their breakup. Katie felt a deep sympathy for Dave upon hearing this. She blamed Dave for not telling the truth sooner. The scene shifted back to Linda. She went to see the old lady with painkillers. The old lady seemed to sense that something was wrong. She asked Linda what was really happening, why there was no sound in the hospital at all, where all the other staff had gone. Just then, Matt saw Linda pushing the old lady into the adjacent observation room. He rushed over to ask what was going on. Matt noticed that Linda had locked the door. He hurried outside to find Dave and ask for help. It turned out that after Linda revealed the truth to the old lady, they reached a consensus. The old lady asked Linda to scan her brain, to record the imaging of her entire process from sleep to death, to see if they could find the cause of the illness. After all, the old lady was nearing death anyway, and her family might all be dead as well. She was willing to make a final contribution, although Katie desperately tried to stop her. She even called Linda a murderer, but this was undoubtedly the best solution. As the equipment powered up, the old lady slowly closed her eyes and fell asleep. Linda successfully obtained a large amount of brain data. She discovered that just before the old lady's heartbeat stopped, the alpha and beta waves reached their peak values. This meant that she had died in her dreams.
I mean, what kind of dream? What kind of dream can you die in?
I don't know, but it must have been a pretty bad one.
Dave watched as everyone continued to break down. He suddenly asked Linda, how long after the old lady fell asleep did she die? She thought for a moment and replied, about 3 minutes. Upon hearing this, Dave decided to sleep for 2.5 minutes, to clarify what was happening in the dream. He said this while lifting his shirt, to reveal the scars on his body. Dave proved that he had previously dreamed of the inverted triangle symbol. Although this method was dangerous, it was indeed feasible. Previously, Dave had forced himself to stay awake, to avoid the dreams. Now, he relaxed, and instantly fell into a deep sleep. He dreamed that he arrived in a wide-open field, with a heavy iron chain attached to his ankle. His range of movement was severely restricted. Just then, a male voice echoed from above. Dave suddenly felt unbearably thirsty. He desperately crawled towards the lake, but he couldn't break free from the restraints on his ankle. Dave helplessly called out Katie and the others' names. He kept pacing in place. Time seems to have passed 10,000 years. Dave sat on the ground, waiting for death. A car suddenly appeared in the distance. His mother got out of the car and handed him a cup of black water, with an eye floating in it. Desperately thirsty, Dave was about to drink it, but he saw an old man in a black robe standing in the distance, and a gigantic whale soaring across the sky. His mother shouted loudly, trying to chase away the old man. Unexpectedly, the old man made a gesture to push both mother and son aside. In the next moment, his mother uncontrollably returned to the car. The old man approached. He urged Dave to look closely at the markings in the water. It turned out that the old man was actually trying to help. He warned Dave not to drink the cup of water. The old man said Aristella before disappearing. As for the mother from earlier, she had transformed back into her true form as the elephant person. Then Dave woke up from the dream. He told everyone about the dream, saying, I have repeatedly dreamed of the black-robed man and the elephant person since I was young. But it was only at this moment that he realized the black-robed man was protecting him from harm. It seemed that to uncover the truth, they needed to go to Aristella.
You want us to fly plane to a remote island that you believe that some mystical dream cult.
This idea, though a bit absurd, is better than just waiting around to die. This flight was destined to be perilous, especially for the pilot Matt. He had to fly the plane while extremely fatigued, crossing half the globe in the process. Without delay, the four quickly packed their bags. They brought enough anti-fatigue medication with them into the car. They were headed to a nearby airport. Sitting in the car, Dave felt extremely sleepy. He felt as if his eyelids were about to stick together. When he regained his senses, he realized Katie had fallen asleep. No matter how he called her, she wouldn't wake up. Linda quickly reminded Dave to check the first aid kit. He complied, and took out the syringe of epinephrine. He injected it directly into Katie's body. She jolted awake from her slumber. The four arrived at the nearby airport. Matt quickly hopped into a plane nearby. He studied the operating manual inside. After all, he had only flown fighter jets before. Matt was unfamiliar with this type of commercial passenger plane. The manual was like an instruction guide for assembling furniture. Reading the instructions was less effective than just operating it directly. Matt called everyone to board the plane, and directly started the aircraft. Long flights are the most likely to make people drowsy. In an instant, Katie couldn't hold on, and fell asleep again. Linda hurriedly took out the epinephrine to inject her again, but it was too late. Katie had no response at all. Fortunately, this way of dying was painless. The remaining three had no time to grieve, because they had already been awake for 64 hours. Sleepiness hit them like a tidal wave. Pilot Matt also began to feel disoriented. To stay alert, he bit his arm. Matt tried everything to keep himself awake. Linda injected Matt with a quarter of the dose. Modafinil has a strong effect, but the side effects include palpitations, chest pain, and blood in urine, and a whole range of adverse reactions, so it shouldn't be used or injected frequently. Now it was up to Matt to manage himself. In the blink of an eye, 75 hours passed. Dave began to see illusions. This condition is called microsleep. His brain was shutting down on its own. His consciousness was fading. Fortunately, only 2 hours remained until their destination. Matt poured hydrogen peroxide on his wound to stay alert. He finally saw an island appear ahead. Since there were no smooth runways on the island, Matt had to make a forced landing on the water. After a bump, the plane glided onto the sea. Fortunately, the three made it safely to shore. The thrill of danger, combined with the cold seawater, finally woke them up. Although Dave had never been to this island, because of his dreams, he felt very familiar with the place. If they climbed to the top of the mountain, they would surely find answers. As they walked, they began to experience illusions. Their heads were also accompanied by sharp pains. The three pushed on, continuing forward, but they saw a funeral ahead, and the person in the coffin was unmistakably Katie. A man in a white robe invited them to take a seat. They uncontrollably sat down in the chairs. Before long, they had splitting headaches, and blood streaming from their eyes. Dave realized this was the elephant person. Deliberately trying to prevent them from reaching the top, he forced himself to crawl to the edge of the coffin. To his surprise, Katie suddenly opened her eyes.
You're not Kate. You're not her.
What?
She's gone. And you killed her.
Kate was exposed, and revealed her true form. Dave forcefully closed the coffin. In the next moment, the three woke up on the grass. Dave saw the mysterious structure at the top of the mountain. Immediately after, a long-haired man approached. He said, "You are safe now." The man led the three to a campsite at the top of the mountain. It housed survivors from all over the world. They were all summoned by the man in the black robe to seek refuge here. Dave was very confused. What on earth had happened in this world? Why did dreams kill people? The man explained. Monsters in dreams take many forms. For Dave, it was the elephant person. For others, it was something different. The dream monsters are the personifications of each person's fears. Only Safet knows the specific situation. Safet refers to the old man in the black robe in the dreams. The man led Dave to meet him. Safet explains that the whale you dreamed of is the guardian of this world. It created a veil to protect us from external harm, but evil forces found a gap to infiltrate and cause destruction through dreams. So the whale brings dreams of enlightenment to some who possess primal energy. Anyone capable of overcoming their inner demons and gathering on the island will not die from sleep. Safet told them to rest first. They would discuss the specifics tomorrow. Everyone collapsed onto their beds and fell asleep. Meanwhile, those who died in their dreams woke up one by one. However, their eyes were bloodshot, and they were no longer normal humans. The story of this season ends here. The concept of sleep death is quite interesting. Watching it makes you want to collapse onto your bed and sleep. The build-up in the first half was gradual and captivating. Unfortunately, the latter part escalated into metaphysics, and it didn't provide a concrete explanation before wrapping up. It feels like the first season was just a trailer. A common issue with recent American dramas is constantly creating mysteries and digging holes in the early stages. Once they can't fill them in, they resort to metaphysics to cover it up. Hopefully, the next season will clarify the origins of the symbols and fill in all the gaps from this season. If you enjoy my channel, please click to subscribe.